Tom Lloyd, he's the dams and treatment manager, engineering manager. I report to him actually, but he's on away at the moment, so I'm acting in his role. A bit about me, I'm an engineer, I'm a process engineer. Where I've worked before mostly was in desalination plants, so I've never really had to deal with dams before. And then coming over to Rous, our treatment plant relies on the water that is stored in a dam. So I brought a bit of an overview about what we're going to talk about today. So we'll talk about Rous, what we do, a bit of background on the Rocky Creek Dam, and a bit more detail on the dam safety management system that we have in place. Invite you to have a look at our flood inundation maps that I've brought along, and talk about the dam safety management plans that we have. Oh, and any upcoming investigation studies. What the investigations and studies really mean are the scheduled required review or documentation of the design and making sure that they're up to date into contemporary standards. So, quick overview of responsibilities. Rous, we are a dam owner. So what does that mean? We have the responsibility to address any risk to the community in case of a dam failure, etc. Other people involved would be the Dam Safety New South Wales. They're the regulatory body, so they set the regulations. ANCOL, which is the Australian National Committee of Large Dams, they use the regulation and they set guidelines. So by following the ANCOL guidelines, we are meeting regulatory requirements. And finally, there's SES, so they're the Compact Agency for flood management events. So this is where I talk about what Rous does. We have primarily two water treatment plants, one at Rocky Creek Dam and one at Immigrant Creek. Immigrant Creek's near Ballina somewhere, we won't talk about that today. We at the Rocky Creek Dam, we take water from the Wilsons River, and we supply over 410 kilometres of bulk pipeline, and we provide water to up to 100,000 people in the region. And the region encompasses Byron, Ballina, Lismore, Richmond Valley, City Council. There might be one more, I might have forgotten. So basically we provide water to a huge area. We also do weed management and flood mitigation. In terms of flood mitigation, that's maintaining flood infrastructure, flood gates, etc. So, what you're looking at over there is basically the spillway and the dam wall, sorry. The spillway is designed to release water automatically, we don't control it, when it gets up to a certain height in the dam. It needs to do that so that it does not breach the dam wall. I think during the floods, a lot of people thought the dam was breaching or breaking. What really was happening was the spillway was releasing water. The dam wall, that's the key bit of infrastructure that we don't ever want it to breach. So how can it breach? It can breach through what we call piping. Piping is basically the water pressure in the dam is so high that it starts to track underneath the geology, and if it's unchecked, it could potentially start emptying the dam, bypassing the wall. But it's designed not to do that, and we put instruments in place to monitor that. The other way the dam could potentially fail is if water is not escaping fast enough through the spillway, and the water height gets so high that it starts to topple the wall. That is a risk, but it's unlikely to happen. Here's a picture of when the dam was built in the 1950s, I think. What you're seeing there, the two pipes are basically to divert water while the dam was being built. they've been capped with clay, we also monitor seepage through those because they're still around. So here's a picture of a dam before we did an upgrade in 2010, and I'll get to why we did an upgrade in 2010. So in 2010 we didn't upgrade because, the upgrades were, we upgraded the dam embankment, basically the dam wall. We raised the crest of the wall by 300 meters. We also put bitumen on top. We put more riprap on both sides of the wall to prevent erosion. And we've also have a reinforced concrete structure on top, and that was to prevent piping of water through the center of the core that could potentially, ruin the structure. Some more photos. All right, so my message today is the dam structure is a breathing, living structure, and it is constantly monitored by our operators. We constantly monitor any seepage. We have live instruments to constantly monitor it. And this slide, basically, I just want to show what sort of the activities we do on an ongoing basis. So, for example, we are going to be reviewing the dam safety next year. We've got, we're going to be updating our dam safety emergency plans, and we do exercise with SES. The last one we've done in 2022, 2020, and this year as well. Okay, so out of the most recent assessment of dam consequence, our consequence got upgraded from a high C to a high A. What does that mean? Well, first of all, the flood modelling, previous flood modelling has stopped at the Shannon. Now the flood modelling has expanded to Lismore. So automatically that means more people would be impacted in a whole consequence assessment. Also, in terms of the value of the asset, that got upgraded as well. And the consequence of a dam failure, what does it mean? Well, 100,000 people will be without water. That's why the consequence got upgraded from a high C to a high A. What it doesn't mean is, what that rating doesn't tell you is, it doesn't mean that the dam is more risky. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means the consequence has gone up. All right, so high A to high C, what does it mean? Well, it means we have to do a lot more to make sure that the dam is safe, basically. Oh, you can't really see. I can't see too. All right, well, some of the things we have to do because it's a high A, for example, all of our reviews and studies now have to be peer reviewed. Previously in the high C, it means we get we get an expert to come in, they do a review for us, and we look at it, they look at it, that's good. Now it's a case of, you did a review, now somebody independent now have to review that. So what does it mean for you guys? The studies are going to be more rigorous, and there's more oversight into what we do in terms of dam safety. I think one of the questions that came through was explanation of dam risk classification. What does a high C and risk rating of 2.03 by 10 to the minus 3 mean in relation to risk to the community? That's a very complicated question. So I've explained what a high C means. It just means the consequence category. The risk rating, I bring attention to that graph. So anything in our risk that's above the line, which is the safety threshold, we must address. So the 2010 dam upgrade, there was the risk of piping over the top of the dam. We addressed it by raising it by 300 meters, reinforcing it with concrete. So that we removed that risk. So there's more of that FN plot. That red one there was deemed too unsafe, address it. And everything else below the safety threshold. And then what they do is they add up all the risk, and hopefully all the risk added up does not pass the safety threshold. Sorry, exceed the safety threshold. So monitoring, what do we monitor? We have automatic rain gauges at the dam. We monitor our dam level. We have physical floats for when the dam level gets above certain heights. And we also monitor the amount of water that seeps through the dam wall. Instruments may be inaccurate, so we also have our operators monitor those instruments 3 times a week. So manually measuring them to make sure that the instruments are working correctly. Also, on the downstream of the dam, there are boreholes for monitoring groundwater level. So if the groundwater level is high, for whatever reason there's been no rain, then we would immediately get an engineer out there to assess the situation. Why have we got high water level on the downstream of the dam when really nothing's happened? There's these things called piezometers. They basically vibrate within the dam wall, and what they measure is the water level inside the clay core. So if water starts rising in the clay core and nothing's happened, like no rain, no dam level changes, we get an engineer out there and we check it out. That engineer is not me. Every 2 years, we get a specialized surveyor to survey whether there's been any movement in the dam. Obviously, movement means, you know, has there been an earthquake? Has there been something happening that could cause a movement? Those accuracies are down to millimeter accuracies, and not any surveyor can do them. Only specialized surveyors do them, and we do them every 2 years. All right. So I brought along some maps with me, inundation maps. Caveat, those maps are purely for us to determine the consequence rating of the dam. You're welcome to have a look. I'm sure people will be like, oh, there's my property there, whatever, am I impacted? I just want to let you know they're not the official flood maps. Please don't use them to sort of judge or gauge anything about your property. They're purely there for assessing consequence category that we're required to do. So there's some documentation and data that we collect on the dam. So dam safety emergency plan, the astute people might, oh, probably can't see it, but last updated 2021. We will be getting that updated really soon. We're working with the SCS to finesse the comms between us. I think from our last workshop, we worked out that we're gonna have a Rous personnel stationed with the SCS so that that person can relay what our dam levels mean. This is probably what everyone's most interested. It's the level in the dam, what the alerts mean. So 0.6 meters above spillway, that's the white alert. That's our internal trigger to start getting an operator out to our treatment plants and out to our dam to start actively monitoring. 1 meter is an amber alert. That's when we would advise SES to potentially prepare for evacuation. When it reaches 1.8, that's when we will advise SES, please now send out evacuation notifications. One of the questions that came through, have the evacuation triggers at Rocky Creek Dam been updated with the latest flood modelling to consider impact of evacuation routes? Short answer is no, we haven't updated our triggers. Reason one, our triggers are what we believe quite conservative already. To give you a bit of context, we get about four white alert triggers a year, rough, give or take. Most of those triggers result in a non-event. So if we lower these triggers any lower, we don't want the community to start evacuating, you know, for a non-event. And even though we've got contact lists on our database where we will start calling people if in emergency, we would advise SES, and SES will be the one to communicate evacuation procedures. Oh, I see a question at the back there.
Red alert at 1.8 metres. What depth can go over the spillway before you need to worry about going over the wall?
3.2 metres above the spillway is when we are worried about it going over the wall. So the last flood, a bit of context, was 2.4 metres. Not quite 3.2, but you know, we don't know what the next flood's going to be. But absolutely, if it goes up to 3.2 metres and is imminently going over the wall, you know, that's, yeah, we'll be worried about that. Okay. So what's coming up? What sort of studies and activities are coming up? Well, currently we're doing our 5-yearly dam safety assessment, and next year we'll be embarking on our 15-yearly dam safety review. And that's a big one. That's literally, we'll get an expert in. They will review everything from the construction of the dam, to how we're maintaining it, to the data we're collecting, and basically, and they will not rely on previous studies. There will be a completely new study, and their goal is to make sure that our dam is got the safety to contemporary standards. So these standards may change from year to year. They will, if anything changes, we will need to bring that up to current day standards. Cool, that's me. My goal here, hopefully it reassures people that the dam is a living, breathing asset. It's not built and then forgotten. We actively monitor this asset. We collect data and we have internal triggers. You know, if any of the data is out of whack, we immediately call our dam safety engineer, who's an external, not a Rous person, and they'll start checking stuff out. So,
thank you, Jane.
thank you.
Can I just ask one question? One of the things that probably interest most people here is that height over the spillway. So February 22, you're calling 2.4 metres above the spillway. And I think the spillway is around about 100 metres long, so that's an enormous volume of water. For the SES, is there, in the event of the risk of a flood, with a rain event, do you have a process whereby you monitor the height above that spillway persistently and get that information to the SES on a regular basis? Because it strikes me that's going to be one of the essential inputs that they're going to need, the amount of water heading into Terania Creek, which is going to incorporate or involve just about everyone here. So is that level over the spillway automatically monitored, or do you put into place a process where it is monitored in the event of a rain event? And is that information fed regularly on an hourly basis, for example, through to the SES or any other relevant authorities?
So the dam level is actively monitored.
The spillway height.
That too. We have floats there and level instruments there to monitor that. That's how we come up with those alerts. Those the white, amber, and red alert. That is all height above the spillway. So yes, we actively monitor the height above the spillway, and we know the height of our dam. So yes, we do. And
so how often is that information fed through to Ed and the SES? How frequently does that occur in the event of a rain event?
So in 2022, we got the alert through that had gone red.
What time?
I think that came through about 2 o'clock in the morning.
2.
Because the process was that the dam is to ring Wollongong, our state headquarters, and they're passing information. 2.4 metres or 3.2 metres over the spillway. What we still have to plan for is when the dam tells us it's going to red alert, we now have to engage in that process of warning the community as regularly as we possibly can with the accurate information. Now what that I don't want to see is the community then making up their own mind about, okay, James just said red alert is 1.8 and we reckon the dam can hold at 3.2. We've got a lot of other things factored into that. So what we're talking about is an early warning system under our new warning system to make sure that everybody is as well informed as they can to make the right decision. Not just hang about and say, well, we knew it can go an extra 2 metres, if that makes sense.